Hey, for this week's video, I thought it would be nice to do another process video. Just a video where I'm painting and talking along about what steps I'm doing and why, and any backstories or thought process behind the work I'm creating right here. Painting is going to be part of a matching set. It's in a rectangle like that because I'm going to be putting a mat over it anyways. And I'm actually planning on decorating the mat as well with some gold ink and maybe some cross-hatching or pointillism ink work. I thought that would be really fun, kind of like it's breaking out of the frame. But anyways, that's why it's in a rectangle like this. I didn't use painter's tape like I normally do. I probably should have, but what are you gonna do? You know, the mat's gonna hide it. Anyways, right now I'm working on the gradients on the skin of this self-portrait, and I'm also kind of bouncing between that and doing the hair. I don't like working in one spot for too long if it starts upsetting me, so I usually try to find something else to work on if I'm just getting frustrated with one part. So in this video, you're going to see me bounce between the skin and the hair a lot. Right now, I'm just trying to create a good general highlight on the shoulder, on my cheekbone, and on my eyebrow bone. After placing a good amount of white paint down and red paint, I'm going back in with my damp, clean brush and I'm just blending out some of the edges around those shadows and highlights. I'm adding a lot more red at the bottom of my arm because later on I'm going to add a lot more black so that my arm just kind of disappears at the bottom into the background a little bit. And I don't want to just put black over this pinkish color I got going on because that's going to make a weird gray color and I don't want that. So as it goes closer to the shadows, I'm adding more red, which I will later on add a little bit of black towards the bottom more. And in a way, I'm doing kind of the same thing for the highlights. You're going to see me use a lot of white gouache paint because I'm trying to build up a subtle gradient to the highest highlight. So I'm making lighter and lighter shades of pink, basically with each layer, until at the very end when I'm like, yeah, I probably want a blinding highlight now because I've created all these other pink gradients underneath. You know what I mean? So I basically blended out all that white I just put down into the red paint that I put down previously. This is going to make for a great mid-tone. I love creating seamless gradients with gouache. It just involves a lot of layers and mixing in the paint and just building it up over time. I really like painting this way though because I feel like it's a lot more intuitive for me. Whereas when I would paint with oil paint and create specific colors for specific areas, I felt like I had to be a little bit more calculated to do that. I really like painting with gouache like this because you just mix as you go. If there's an area that I feel like needs just a slight bluish tint, for instance, I could go in with blue watercolor pencils, or I could go in with a little bit of just blue gouache paint. Blend that right in and it'll just create a new color. And I know you can do that with other paints, but with gouache, it's almost like it's built for you to do that. Any liquid brings up anything that's underneath and just mixes together. So it's really easy to work this way. But if you're more of like a plein air painter or a painter that likes to mix your colors beforehand and then put them on your painting, this medium might be a little bit annoying. Actually, I think the number one thing that I've heard people complain about gouache is when you put down a color and you're thinking, this is the exact color I want. I want this right here on my painting. It also can sometimes look lighter when you're putting it down and then it dries darker. So if you pre-mix and you like to paint where you place everything exactly where it needs to go right away and the exact color that you want. This will be a little bit annoying. But I think you can still, you could still pre-mix. You just have to understand like how it dries and kind of predict what the color will look like once it dries down. But also take a note that if you want to work that way, don't use that much water. Because the more water you have, the more it's going to mix with anything that's layered underneath. Alright, I'm building up these highlights pretty good. I would also like to point out, I had the general mid-tone and highlights mapped out around the face, but as I get more detailed, there's going to be really specific small shifts in color. A good example of this would be around the mouth area and lower cheek area by my jaw. There's just the most slight shadow there because I have hamster cheeks, okay, and it casts a shadow right there. No lie though, I do. And I really want this to look real. My face isn't just like a flat plane that casts no shadow. I have chubby cheeks, okay? So I made sure to keep a subtle pink shadow right there. And also around my eye makeup, I put more red around where my mascara and eyeliner is because it just looks like there's a gradient around my brow bone as well as, it gives the illusion of my eyeshadow and my crease. Okay, these very small, tiny gradients I had to do around my nose and my cheeks were really bothering me, so I had to take a break and just start working on the hair. Right now, I am putting in black anywhere there's going to be, like a clump of hair. I'm going to try and keep it more on the ends and the roots underneath any pieces of hair that are in the very front, like near my forehead. It just gives a lot more dimension, makes it look like there's strands layered on my head instead of just one curtain of hair. And as I do this, I am also putting in some white, and again, I'm just building up the layers for all these gradients. I'm brightening it up in this area near my forehead because these pieces stand out a lot more in the photo and catch a lot more light. I am not worrying about specific strands of hair right now. Right now I'm viewing the hair as groups or clumps of hair, and as I get more detailed later on, then I will start adding, thinner lines, and eventually I'll just end up doing very specific flyaway strands. Over that white I put down, I am putting red just to make it more saturated where the highlights are. Then I'm going to add white again very soon and just repeat this process until I get a lot more specific and make very thin lines and have more carved out details in each strand of hair. In between these layers, I'm also getting a clean damp brush and I'm just blending these colors down. Almost like if you use Procreate or any digital medium, think of this technique as using the smudge tool. I'm basically taking some of that black paint that's at the root of my hair and I'm bringing it down into some of these strands within the groups of hair. This just makes it look like it's more layered and textured. And I'm also doing the same thing at the bottom, especially any pieces that curl in. They will be moving away from the light source, so I definitely want to add more shadows there. As you can see from my cheekbones, my eyebrow bone, and my shoulder, the light source is likely going to hit my front hair pieces a lot more. Those clumps of hair that would likely be kind of like bangs. At the very top where it curves out from the root, I'm adding more highlight there because that's where the light is going to hit my hair. As well as some pieces that are near my ear tend to get a lot more light in this photo. Right here I'm just smudging again since I introduced some more colors. I just want to make sure everything is blended, but I'm also keeping in mind not to blend it too much because you still want there to be some texture. And as I go on, I am doing thinner and thinner lines. Right here, I have built up the layers to a point where I felt comfortable adding some extra strands of hair, some little wispies. This makes the hair feel more organic and real. At this point, this really makes the hair feel like you can touch it. Your eyes have a lot of contrasting layers of hair underneath, and you can see those flyaways really bright going across any of the shadows that are behind it. And I'm adding more highlights near that root area, which catch more light. And right here, I don't know what to say this is, some venom looking black strands. I wanted to look like the darkness or something was like consuming me and I'm coming out of it. So I just added these weird vine looking things of just black gouache. I felt like if I left the arm plain, it just wouldn't balance that much against all the abstract, interesting, detailed shapes going on in the smoke that are at the top of the painting. I did include this in my photo reference that I photoshopped, and I felt like it just balanced everything out really nice, so yeah. Adding my eyebrows because, you know, I gotta have those. It was so hard for me to get a crisp line on this venom stuff, so I wound up just thinking, you know what, I wanted to add just a little bit more of a blinding highlight on my shoulder because I like pushing contrast. And I found when I did that, it gave me a good excuse to just go in and clean up the edges of those black vine thingies. Going in with a scrubby brush to make sure that's all blended out. Adding more white because I wound up just adding too much water beforehand and it got a little bit patchy, so I had to fix it. Ugh, don't you just love it when that happens? Oh my god, I hate that. Yeah, really, I'm just adding some minor details and it's pretty much done. But next, I'm going to be adding some watercolor pencils and I will explain why. So I love the hair, I love the extra strands I added, but I felt like it needed, you know, those flyaways I added, they weren't thin enough to be flyaways, you know, it kind of adds a messy look to my hair, but it's not giving me, oh my god, I can reach out and touch her hair. So I really wanted to do razor thin lines for flyaways and just really make it look like there's baby hairs, maybe some hair that's breaking off. So I went in with my Derwent watercolor pencils and I'm using a very sharp red watercolor pencil. I went in also around any areas around my body or my face that needed just an extra red gradient cleanup. Anyways, I added some strands, and to remove the textured look from the illustration board that makes it look kind of gross, I just followed that with a damp brush and smoothed it out. And boom, I had really textured hair that was really real looking. I love how it turned out. Anyways, I hope you guys liked this video and I hope it was helpful in some way. I'll see you guys next week. Bye!